Welcome to Season 2 of my channel. About a year ago I started this channel because of my obsession for movies. And what a year it's been. So, my very first video last year was my worst movies of 2021. So I thought it'd be a nice touch to come full circle, and I start off the new year with the worst movies of 2022. Now by the worst, I don't necessarily mean they're bad in quality, although some of them are. I also mean that some of them were very disappointing to me. Some I was really anticipating, and they just didn't follow through. So let's get started with my top 5 worst films of 2022.
Roll the intro.
Thank you for clicking on my video. You didn't have to do that, but I appreciate that you did. AKA Mr. FLIXTER, and I'm here to talk motion pictures. Mr. You might notice that there are no horror films on this list. Don't worry, I have another video with that. That's a whole separate list. And come on, horror's kind of my thing. And yes, this is going to be a spoiler talk. Before I get started, these aren't going to be full reviews of these movies. I have full reviews of these movies on Letterboxd, and most of these movies I've done videos for too, so make sure you check those out. And this year, I have a new co-star. Say hello to Nala. Say hello, Nala.
Hello, Nala. Film critic extraordinaire. Yeah. At your service.
Also, earlier this year I did a video with Movies and Munchies about the worst films of the year so far. Did they hold up?
Hello, world. Happy New Year, Mrs. Whiskers. So, darling, I just have to know, whatever do you think of the new one?
It might be a new year, but it's not a very happy one. No thanks to that little
Surely you don't mean that, darling.
She's a dirty little MF. That's right, a measly furball. There, I said it.
At number 5, I have Moonfall. I was actually looking forward to this movie when I first saw previews for it, because I am a fan of some of Roland Emmerich's movies. So, you know, there's a little bit of hope there. There's a little bit of hope. I thought I might enjoy this film. Oh, man, was I wrong. It's a disaster film.
It's a disaster, that's for sure. Meow, meow, meow.
That's so funny coming from you.
Oh, I get it. You're saying she's a disaster. Oh.
First of all, it's got such a nonsensical plot. The previews make it look like the moon is exploding or something like that, and the Earth has to deal with the issue. But no, it's not like that at all. It's about aliens that took over the moon and have all these little like nanobots, and it's just really weird writing choices, if you ask me. And it's so overly convoluted too. There's so much going on in this film, and it's so hard to keep track of all the different subplots of all these characters that you just don't care about because there's no growth, there's no personal connection to them, there's no emotional attachment or anything like that. There's just so many unnecessary side plots that just distract from this whole science fiction disaster film that they're trying to set up. It's derivative of Armageddon, Don't Look Up, and even Terminator. It's full of choppy editing that makes the action hard to see. The finale is so forced. It's got Halle Berry in it. I totally forgot about that. I forgot the first time that I watched this movie, and I talked about it, Movies and Munchies. That shows about how memorable her role was, if you ask me. Actually, the alien tech kind of reminds me of the nanobots from Big Hero 6. Except Big Hero 6 has better CGI. For some reason, all the characters make dumb choices that put them in unnecessary danger. Why do they have to do that in movies? Like, I know they gotta keep the plot going, but can't your characters be smart? Is that really so much to ask for? And can you treat your audience like intelligent figures? Is that so much to ask for? And don't get me wrong, I like Patrick Wilson, but the whole storyline between him and his son being arrested, and then it ends up not mattering, like, at all throughout the rest of the movie, like, just felt so tacked on and so unnecessary. A lot of his movies have this father-son relationship that's like the center of the story, because most of his movies, they just have the same storyline. And why do they keep showing the moon peeking over the horizon like some sort of horror movie villain? It's just ridiculous, if you ask me. A lot of this movie is unintentionally funny, and that's why it's number 5.
Moonfall can be summed up in 3 words: erotical, predictable, and derivative.
Is it just me, darling, or does Nala sound silly when she talks?
Really? Was that sarcasm?
My grade for this movie is medium popcorn. And make sure you watch my Scream 5 video so you can see the whole origin story of where that rating system came from, the different size popcorns. My number 4 is Lightyear. I have a hard time believing that this was Andy's favorite movie as a kid growing up during the first Toy Story. And because this is supposed to be the movie that spawned that toy line, right? At my screening, there was a lot of kids there, obviously, and a lot of them were very fidgety during this movie. Like, they couldn't even sit and pay attention to the whole thing. So right away, I started scratching my head about that. This movie also raises a lot of questions, but I'll get to that. It does start off with an interesting premise. It's very reminiscent of older science fiction, like The Time Machine, or Lost in Space. And it even feels a bit like Interstellar, that Christopher Nolan flick. But as it goes on, it just turns into another one of those generic space adventures, with a lot of strange writing choices, if you ask me, that really minimize the classic Toy Story character. And this film was unbelievably disappointing, because I was looking forward to this. And then it was one of those things where afterward, it's like, what did I just watch? On the plus side, Socks is one of my new favorite Pixar characters.
I got a bad feeling about this. We just got a new cat and we don't need another one.
All we need to do, darling, is convince Daddy. Socks, socks.
I've got it. Let's go back in time to stop it from happening.
Or we could just do it now because it hasn't happened yet.
Oh. Yeah. Let's do that then.
So, as far as the time travel plot goes, consider this. Every time Buzz went on his mission, he lost 4 years. At one point, it shows the 40th anniversary for his friend's marriage. That means Buzz went on his mission at least 10 times. And considering the Zurg twist, does that mean that every time he went out into space and did his mission, he created an alternate timeline? So there's at least 10 other Buzz Lightyears out there in the universe? If that's the case, then why is Pixar doing another multiverse movie outside of Marvel when that's already kind of their thing that they've been establishing for Phase 4? I don't know. Furthermore, if Zurg Lightyear killed the original Lightyear, wouldn't that kill all the Lightyears? Does that make sense to you? Am I putting more thought into this than the writers did? Is that sad? This also raises the question that if it took Socks 62 years to find out the formula for light speed, and time travel exists in universe, why not just go back in time to the original mistake and try to avoid breaking the hyperdrive in the first place? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much involved in this. It's so convoluted. Oh, my head is spinning. Another question. Does that mean that there are 10 or more different variants of all the characters that we've met in this movie? Pixar's usually pretty good about coming up with their own original ideas. It's just very confusing, in my opinion. That's the thing about this movie. It's very confusing. I'm very conflicted about this movie. Compared to all the other Pixar films, it doesn't have the same emotional impact. And it's not as funny as the other ones are. It's actually very dark and depressing and nihilistic, in my opinion. It also makes me wonder, why wasn't this just released on Disney+. Is there any reason this got a theatrical release other than the fact that Toy Story is Pixar's baby? The one that started it all? I would have much preferred to see either Luca or Turning Red on the big screen than this. I don't like the character design. I don't like a lot of the character designs, actually, except for Socks. Socks is amazing. I have nothing bad to say about Socks. Like, the animation is good and all, but it's mainly the story that gets me here. Actually, screw that. The animation's kind of ugly in this. If you look at all the different, like, backgrounds of the world, it's not a pretty movie to look at. Yeah, I take it back. This movie's not pretty.
Lightyear tries to fly to infinity and beyond, but ends up falling with style into mediocrity just within reach.
I can sum up this film with one quote that Buzz Lightyear says in the original Toy Story. You were one sad, strange little film. My grade for Lightyear was medium popcorn. My number 3 film is the Disney remake of Pinocchio, the Disney Plus original movie. This is such a tangled mess of strings and things. Oh my god. This is basically a shot-for-shot remake of the original Pinocchio cartoon that they came out with way back when. So if you've seen that movie, I can't really spoil this movie because you've already seen it. But they took the soul out of it. This movie's so soulless. It has no heart or anything like that. And maybe it's just me, but everything seems way too convenient in this film. Some examples are how they escape Pleasure Island, how Jiminy Cricket and Pinocchio end up finding Geppetto on the boat, and even how they escape Monstro. It seems too easy. And then some of the changes that they did make, because there are a few, are just bizarre. Like, I get how they can't have all the kids smoking and drinking beer, but why switch it to root beer? Shouldn't it be mischievous things the kids shouldn't be doing? Not just destroying things. You know, like committing crime, something like that, like theft, stealing, lying, things like that. And that's another thing, too. There's supposed to be a big lesson about how lying's bad. But, if anything, lying seems like a way to get yourself out of things in this movie. The best example is how Pinocchio uses his nose to grow to get the key to get out of the cage. Kind of mixed messages, don't you think? They don't even say the word jackass in this movie. And that's literally a term that means donkey. Too much time is dedicated to new characters introduced in this film that aren't in the original, but their subplots don't end up mattering in the end at all. For example, the little girl that talks to Pinocchio using the puppet. You think that he'd go back and when he became a real boy and fall in love with her or something like that, but no. She just goes off and starts her own business, and then we just don't see her anymore. I'm sorry, did you think that was relevant? I don't like the look of Monstro either. For some reason he looks like a Kraken in this movie. but they don't even do anything with it. He still acts like a whale. So what was the point of that? This movie is very creepy, but not in a fun, good way like the original was. Some of the character designs are just plain unsettling to the point where it's distracting. And the animation is so inconsistent in this. Pinocchio looks very cartoonish. Same with the cat, Figaro. But then you have like Honest John and you have Jiminy Cricket, which have more realistic looks. And it doesn't match up. It's very jarring. And also, as far as the ending goes, how can a puppet cry? And why does he have the same superpowers as Rapunzel? Why is Pinocchio a superhero now? He acts like a superhero. Why? At one point, he even does that cliche superhero landing. Oh, like, really? And Pinocchio doesn't turn into a real boy at the end? What? This is exactly how not to do a Disney remake. After Robert Zemeckis did that Witches remake, I should have saw this coming. I was actually hesitant as soon as I saw his name was attached to this because of that movie. I can't bring myself to recommend this movie to anybody. It's not even worth a Disney Plus subscription if you don't have it already, just to watch this movie. If you wanted to see it, don't do it. If you already have Disney Plus, don't do it. Watch the original. Or that Guillermo del Toro version. On Netflix, there's actually a scene in this movie that perfectly sums up the whole entire film. It's when Pinocchio is walking down the street and he stops to stare at a big pile of horse manure. Yeah, pretty much. My first regret for the Disney remake of Pinocchio is small popcorn.
I wish I could wish upon a wishing star.
And what would you wish for, darling?
I'd wish that awful remake never got made.
Oh, really? I assumed you'd wish for no Nala.
Oh, Snackle Fritz. Hey, I hoard that. Meow, meow, meow. Good. Now she won't have to repeat it.
Now this brings us to our number 2. Now this next one is a real personal low blow for me. It wasn't just disappointing, this was soul crushing. I was so disheartened, so pissed off when I left the theater. Not as much as the next pick, my number 1 pick, but I'll get to that. My number 2 pick is Jurassic World Dominion. I was so excited for this movie. The old cast was coming back. They were going to unite with the new cast, and it was going to be like their endgame. You know what I mean? And then they made it about giant bugs. And it's the one movie where they didn't have to send people to an island somewhere for some reason. And they sent people to an island somewhere for some reason. It's actually a mountain range, but hey. Why?
Well, they started. We put their camera stuff and filmed it. Meow.
This had so much potential, and it went so horribly wrong. Like, seriously, what is with the giant bug and the cloning subplots? Why can't my Jurassic Park movie just be about dinosaurs? Is that really so much to ask for? Don't get me wrong, I love Jurassic Park. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Steven Spielberg, like I said in my Gremlins video, you should watch that if you haven't seen it, by the way. He's the reason why I fell in love with cinema in the first place. Wouldn't it make more sense if the carnivores ate all of the livestock? Or like, what if all the herbivores were eating all the crops in the farms? I mean, what if there was a story about what if cows went extinct? How would people adapt to that? All these things are just stuff that I thought of off the top of my head when I wrote my review in the summer. And they had it. They were building up to it for 2 movies. They had a very simple premise, and they totally screwed it up.
I'm pretty sure Michael Crichton is spinning around in his grave right now.
Did you want to see a movie about the cohabitation of dinosaurs and people, just like what the last film set up? Why are you not getting it in this film?
And this part isn't even in the movie. WTF?
It's got unnecessary new plot points added in that are just ludicrous, predictable, and It just makes me want to shake my head. This movie's so frustrating. I've only watched it once and I can't even bring myself to watch it again just because I don't want to sit through it because I know what I'm in for. And I thought Jurassic Park 3 and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was bad. Oh, I was wrong. Those are rewatchable. I can watch those again and someone enjoy certain parts. But this one? Forget it. Now again, don't get me wrong. Dumb characters running around from dinosaurs can be fun. But if they live for no other reason than the plot demands it, then why do I care about these characters? That just completely destroys all my suspension of disbelief. What's even worse is this doesn't even feel like a Jurassic Park film or a Jurassic World film. And there's so much more material they could have touched on in the books that the movies haven't touched on yet. There's 2 Jurassic Park books with stuff that I've been waiting to see on the big screen, and it still hasn't happened yet. I honestly never thought I'd see the day that a Jurassic Park movie would think of the dinosaurs as more of an afterthought.
Talk about a Jurassic disaster.
It's not fun to watch. There's no suspense. And it's way too many characters. I had the same problem with Rise of Skywalker. They start these new plots with all these new characters when they have so much rich content to go off of. And it breaks my heart. It's disrespectful to the source material. It ignores the prior 2 films in the trilogy. And it doesn't even know what to do with its characters. The 2 groups barely interact with each other. What could have been a fun, nostalgic adventure like The Force Awakens just turns out to be another unintelligible clone of its predecessor, which are far superior films. And aside from Jurassic Park movies, there's not really any good dinosaur movies if you think about it. Aside from like Carnosaur, but that's all I can think of. And then there's odd writing choices like, why bring Biosyn into the picture so late in the game? I mean, Biosyn and InGen have always been rivals, but there's been no mention of Biosyn up until now. It's just weird to me. And I think my biggest unresolved question for this movie, and the last one too actually, now that I think about it, is whatever happened to Isla Sorna, Site B? Did everybody just forget about the second island after 2 and 3 took place there? My official grade for Jurassic World Dominion is small popcorn.
Dr. Ian Malcolm predicted the future of the Jurassic Park franchise when he was standing next to that big pile of Triceratops done.
This film has big wugs, ugly mugs, zero-pawed rugs, and shrugs from giant bugs. Meow, 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 meow.
They certainly put the no in dinosaur, darling.
More like they certainly put the ass in Jurassic. Ho ho!
Before I get to my number 1, I just want to touch on a few dishonorable mentions. The first one, and I did mention it in my other video that I made with Movies and Munchies, but it still holds up. Cheaper by the Dozen remake on Disney+. The comedy of it is just so forced. Like, they have 2 dogs, for example. One of them is named Bark Obama, and Joe bites him. Yeah.
Awfully subtle, isn't it?
Aside from that, Zach Braff and Gabriel Union are great actors, but they have no chemistry. None at all. They're just so robotic and wooden when they're around each other. Like, never believed once at all that they were a couple. And then the kids, they're supposed to be like the star of the picture. This focuses more on the adults and opening a restaurant. Or maybe it was a bakery. I haven't seen this in a while. I won't watch it again. But it's just, why would a kid care about that kind of stuff? And all these kids are so one-dimensional too. Like, one is the smart kid. One is the athletic kid. One is the artistic kid. That kind of thing. Oh. That kind of thing drives me nuts. It's so lazy. Lazy writing. Who was this made for? Can't imagine kids being interested in it, like I said before. Can't imagine adults being interested in it because it's just stupid. It's just, I don't get it. How does this get made? You're better off watching the Steve Martin versions or the original. And they have racial profiling as a subplot in a family film, which is fine, but they don't go anywhere with it. Because at one point they go to the country club and they accuse the black kid of stealing, and then it turns out that they caught the thief and it wasn't him. But they never said who it was. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. That's the thing about this film. It does a lot of telling instead of actually showing, which is what filmmaking and storytelling is supposed to be all about. Show, don't tell. You know what I mean? My second and final dishonorable mention is the Disney Plus original Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers.
2022 was a rough year for Disney Plus original content. Aside from the Marvel shows, I got nothing bad to say about those.
Those chipmunks sure do look tasty. I like dipping mine in fudge.
And what do you mean by that, darling?
I just love chocolate chipmunks.
Oh, brother.
But I'm your sister, silly. And I'm so lucky to have two no sisters. Meow.
And we are just so lucky to have you, darling.
We are. You are? Meow.
Now there's two of them. How wonderful.
Okay, first of all, this is not a Rescue Rangers movie. This is just Chip 'n Dale, for the most part. They're the Rescue Rangers, they're there in small parts here and there, but for the most part, it's not what you think it is, or what you think it's going to be. Even when I saw the first previews for it, I was really skeptical about this film, and it did not deliver, in my opinion. Rather than recapturing the energy and the fun of the TV series from the 90s, I think it tries too hard at being self-aware and meta. Like, yeah, I get it. It's a reboot, poking fun at reboots and the flaws of reboots. Also, while being a reboot itself. Do you get it yet? Is it funny yet? The problem is, I think it's too on the nose. It could have been so much more if it just stuck to the classic Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers formula. They have this big mission they have to go to, they go on it, and they save the world. That would have been great. It could have been one of those classic adventure stories. I also thought it tried way too hard to be the next Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This is not that. The plot just didn't sit well with me. I don't mind it going dark, but the odd writing choices just bother me. It focuses too much on character cameos rather than having a Rescue Ranger story. While I do applaud the ambitiousness of it all, I don't hate this film, and it doesn't anger me. I just thought it was so disappointing. Mainly just because it lacks heart, and it lacks genuine emotion like those ones did. It's not really funny. Instead of trying to be the next something, it should have focused more on trying to be its own thing. But it's the story and the characters and all the substance that make a film great that it just is missing from it. And on the plus side, it's not as bad as the more recent Tom and Jerry movie. And now, for my number one pick. And if you've seen my Movies and Munchies video, or if you've seen the review for this video, it's probably no surprise to you. Or, if you haven't seen those videos, and this is your first video that you watched with me, then this might surprise you. It's just my opinion. If you don't like it, agree to disagree. What's wrong with that? So now, my number one pick for what I think was the worst movie of 2022, Batman. This movie pisses me off. It's an uninspired, disappointing, tediously overblown, utter disaster. Don't get me wrong, it does have its moments, but it never really redeems itself in my opinion. And why is this movie 3 hours long? The third act just feels so tacked on, like a whole different movie. Like, it just doesn't fit. I won't see this movie once because I can't bring myself to rewatch it again because I know what I'm in for. It's just so hard to get through. They could have taken out the Catwoman. They could have taken out Penguin and just focused on Riddler. And it could have been so much better. The Riddler is such a strong character that he is able to carry his own movie on his own. Believe it or not, it is possible. I just don't feel like they did the character of the Riddler justice. Which is ironic, considering the theme of this movie. The entire thing just seems very familiar to me. We have a serial killer that leaves cryptic clues for a detective. He has a weird obsession with one of the heroes. The killer's apartment was full of detailed plans and a series of nonsensically written journals. Where have I seen this before? The kills are based on the 7 deadly sins. There's greed. There's wrath. There's gluttony. There's envy and pride. Those all seem to be prevalent themes. I could have sworn I've seen this movie before. There's no one masking, and the detectives don't actually catch the killer. He reveals himself. Yeah, that sounds familiar too. The psychopath makes messed up videos and leaves them for Batman. Said psychopath pits crime bosses against each other. Yes, this is all sounding very familiar. And then there's the obligatory interrogation scene. Something's coming back to me. And one man single-handedly thrust Gotham City into utter chaos while making Batman question himself. I could have sworn I've seen this movie before. And then, of course, there's the "we're not so different, you and I" scene. Yes, indeed. Very familiar. Could it be those are plot points from 7 in The Dark Knight? You bet they are. My grade for Batman 2022 is small popcorn. So that's my list of my top 5 worst movies of 2022. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Am I wrong about Batman? Should I give it another shot? Until next time, have a good day.
Thank you for watching. Meow. And please like and subscribe. Right now. Meow, 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 meow.
Did you know that some of the series from horrorbuzz.com? You can read my articles on their website. Plus, I'll also make frequent appearances on their YouTube channel, Horrorbuzz Live. So I'll leave links below to that stuff. You should take a look when you get the chance.
Push forward to find what's in between, but nothing's ever as it seems. My time is coming, it's too late now to rewind. So